Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show today. This is Energy Impacts Podcast with David Blackmon. I am David Blackmon for those who have not seen us before. And I am here today with some extraordinarily special guests, Ron Stein, Mike Umbro, two tremendous energy analysts and writers who are strong advocates for strong energy in California and everywhere else. Guys, how y'all doing? Oh, and Stu Turley's with us here too.
Don't forget
Uh,
Stu.
the Energy News Beat. Sorry about that. Before we get into things, though, I want to let everyone know the name of this episode is "What the Hell is Happening in California." We picked that name a week ago before we had any inkling there were going to be riots in Los Angeles. So our podcast today is not really related to the riots that are happening. We may chat about it a little bit, but it is not the focus. We're focused on energy and all the crazy things that are happening related to energy in the state. So, gentlemen, how y'all doing today?
Fantastic. Good early morning start.
Well, good. Great. Stu, how are you?
Absolutely thrilled to be producing this, and I absolutely love your guest lineup. I'm just thrilled to sit here and go, yay, team!
Mike, how's everything in your world?
My world is most excellent. It's the opening day of the county fair, so we're taking the kids today. So this is a great way to start with what the hell is happening.
Which county are you in? Which county are you in?
I'm in San Diego. So I'm born and raised, and I live in San Diego.
Wow, what a beautiful place. Gorgeous place. Ronald, where are you in California?
I'm in Orange County.
Orange County. Well, gosh, you guys live in paradise down there. You have not seen hide nor hair of a riot in the last few days, have you?
Fortunately, no.
Well, that's good. There's our mention of the riots. So let's talk about energy instead. And folks, you can, for those of you watching live, you can ask questions, make comments. If you any questions, we'll respond to during the course of the show. Before we go into questions and answers about the issues, though, I want to give Ronald, you first, and then Mike a chance to talk about, what you guys do, where people can find you and follow your work, which is just terrific. I post many of your pieces on my own Substack. They're just tremendous bits of analysis and commentary, and really appreciate you guys sharing them with me.
Well, to reach me, it's Ronald. You can just Google Ronald Stein, America Out Loud News. I'm a columnist there, and it'll get you a link to all the books I've written and all the articles I've written. And so it's an easy way to contact me, and just Google my name, and I'm all over it.
How about you, Mike?
For me, just LinkedIn personally. I'm active on there. I'm on X under my real name. And then Californians for Energy and Science is our nonprofit where we're advocating for sane policy around energy, economics, environment. We are energyandscience.com. So energyandscience.com.
And your work is not limited to California, right? I mean, you guys don't really limit yourselves and your commentary and your activities to California specific issues, do you?
No, what we really talk about is the Western states and the United States, because California is a critical component of the U.S. economy, being $4.2 trillion a year in GDP. So what happens in California sets the tone for the rest of the country in many respects.
Yeah. Ronald, you were about to say something too.
Yeah, the conversation we're going to have today is really geared around the basic foundation of the conversation is the fact that the West Coast gasoline, diesel, aviation fuel market is in California. We're an energy island in California, and that's apart from other states, because California is isolated from the other states east of the Sierra Mountains because there's no pipelines over the Sierras.
Yeah.
So in California, we produce all of our gasoline, all of our diesel, all of the aviation fuel in state. And we basically get the oil in state and we refine it in state. And if we can't get the oil in state, we import it. And we've been importing a lot of it. We used to have like 95% independence from the world, but the Democrats have been successful, and we are now importing about 70% of our oil from foreign countries. And now with refineries going down, we'll be unable to meet the fuel demands of the state.
Yeah.
So those fuel demands are be coming from somewhere else. And so that's kind of like the basis, the foundation of this conversation we're about to have, that we are an energy island. And, Governor Newsom has been fantastic of attacking the supply chain and eliminating production and being so hard on the refinery. They're starting to shut down. He's done nothing about demand. Demand keeps increasing. And so, but he only focuses on the supply. And
Well, he's been trying to do things about demand, right, with his EV mandate, which was scheduled. I think the requirement was 35% by 2030 and 100% by 2035.
I think it's 2026. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's one of the problems. His EV mandate, he's focusing on eliminating gasoline. He would like to eliminate the gasoline vehicle. Well, gasoline is one of the products that come out of crude oil.
Right.
We get almost 6,000 products out of crude oil. He forgot about the other 5,999 products that are driving the economy and society. And so he wants to get rid of gasoline with EVs. Well, it turns out California's a big state. You got 400,000 miles of roadway in the entire state. And gasoline taxes provides about almost $9 billion to maintain those roads. So his mandate to go to EVs, he wants to eliminate gasoline, which would reduce that $9 billion. And in place, he wants to put heavier vehicles on the road to tear up the road. So we'll have less money to maintain the roads, and we're tearing it up at a faster rate. It makes no sense.
I just pulled up the slide from the California Auto Outlook. So the mandate levels were 35% by 2026, 43% by 2027, and 51% by 2028. So in 3 years, they need 50% EVs. The last quarter one of 25, 20%. We're at 20%. So they need to more than double the EV adoption inside of 36 months. That is,
and this is and so that's really a national issue, right? Because how many states is it that copy California's air quality standards?
it's up to like 11 or 12 or more.
Yeah. I think it's a dozen different states, and they're all over the country. I mean, Virginia is one of them, all the way on the East Coast, I know. And so you end up with these crazy policies being pushed into force by Gavin Newsom's government, end up becoming policies all over the country eventually. Right. And that's why, isn't it? I mean, it's one of the major drivers of why tomorrow, as we're recording this on Wednesday, June 11th, on June 12th, President Trump is going to sign 3 different resolutions passed by Congress under the Congressional Review Act that are going to revoke California's ability to enforce that mandate. What kind of an impact do you think that's going to have?
It's going to be huge because EVs have been bought by the elites. They'll continue to be bought by the elites. But David, we are quickly running out of elites. Now we're getting down to the common folk, and they can't afford it. They can't afford second cars. And, California, of all the EVs in the entire country, Mike, I think we have about half of the EVs in the entire country in California. And it's
more than any other state, that's for sure. Absolutely.
Yes. So it's EVs are going to be hitting the toilet pretty quick.
And this is going to have a big impact on Tesla, isn't it?
Huge.
Because California is Tesla's biggest market, isn't it?
Oh, there's Teslas everywhere in Southern California. You can't miss them, and they're great. Look, they're great vehicles, but nobody should be forced to buy a certain type of vehicle, and that's just the fact of the matter. And I think Sacramento politicians should be thanking President Trump for canceling this mandate, because it's a way out from a metric that they will not hit. They're not going to double or triple EV adoption in 3 years. It's just not going to happen. So they should be thanking him for giving them a way out of this.
Well, I mean, is there any aspect of obviously that standard's impossible. That goal is impossible. It was never going to be hit in the first place. What plans does the California government have in place? Just assuming they're going to sue Trump tomorrow, okay, or next week over what he signs tomorrow. They're probably going to lose that because there's no real doubt that the administration has a clear authority to revoke that waiver under the Clean Air Act. But let's say so let's just assume they're going to lose. What kind of plans does the state have in place to back up if that thing goes away? What becomes the plan at that point in terms of reducing demand for gasoline to make up for all the refineries that Newsom is shutting down at the same time?
It's going to further accentuate the fact that we are a national security risk for the entire country.
Yeah.
Even without the gasoline needs, let's just focus on two other products that come out of the refineries: aviation fuel and diesel fuel. Aviation fuel, California's a big state. We've got like 145 airports. Most are small, but 9 of them are international. 41 are military airports. And we're consuming 13 million gallons of aviation fuel every day, all made in California. These 2 refineries that are shutting down, Phillips in Southern California and Valero in Northern California, that's taken about 18% of the market out. And that, like I say, we're going to basically rely on, there's 8 new refineries coming on board in the next few years, but they're coming on board in China.
Right.
And so China will most likely be providing the aviation fuel to run our military airports and our international airports. And David, that is scary. And gasoline is another product. And if we can't have EVs, we'll continue to use gasoline, which is coming out of the refinery. So the Chinese will be running our cars too. So we're in bad shape.
Yeah.
David, this is a chart from Nathan Hammer. He created this chart that I used in an article just recently on the amount of production lost out of California. This is the thousands of barrels per day that California used to produce. And if
production, okay.
Yeah.
This chart, Mike Umbro is a real understanding as an EMP kind of guy in California who happens to be my hero. And I think he looks a little bit like John Wick's cousin, but we'll just leave that alone for now. But look at this chart. I mean, that chart is the total destruction of California. I've got a couple more charts that I'm going to go get here in a sec. But Mike, do you want to talk about how it's destroyed? He's destroyed the oil and gas.
Well, this has happened.
California?
Yeah, if you could also overlay Alaska on that production curve, and you'd see the same type of decline.
Same curve, yeah.
And what's interesting about that is back in the 80s and 90s, California and Alaska together provided over 95% of the oil that we need every year in California, over 600 million barrels a year. 95% of that was Alaska and California. And today, as Ron mentioned, just about 25% of that is California and Alaska. And that's where I'm excited about the Energy Dominance Council being in Alaska. I don't think for a minute that they've forgotten California exists. I don't think anybody ever forgets California exists.
No, you can't.
So what can they do? They can come in here and they can unleash California, and we can start to supply our own energy on the West Coast. Over 50% of Alaska's oil production is bought or imported into California. So wouldn't we rather be trading with ourselves instead of trading with Iraq and Saudi Arabia, which, to get back to your question, David, on what's the plan, that is CARB's plan. The California Air Resources Board puts out a scoping plan. They just released one a couple of years ago. And that plan says, number one, California will still need significant quantities of oil and gas in 2040 or 2050 when we effectively get to quote unquote net zero. And that oil will be imported, and we will need, and it says this in the scoping plan, we will need 2 to 5 times more tanker boats to deliver finished product, jet fuel, gasoline and diesel, to these refineries, which will now become import terminals. So you're not going to get rid of the refinery. You're just going to have storage tanks of finished product. And you're going to be sending $50 billion a year to OPEC countries instead of $50 billion a year between Alaska and California trading together.
So there's other aspects of what's happening in California that also makes it a bit of a national security problem, right? One is the fact that gasoline and diesel prices are about to skyrocket in the state because of the increase in the gas tax and the crackdown on what is it CARB is doing? The low carbon fuels mandate, right? That they're cracking down on.
Yep.
Yeah. And so you're already paying $6 a gallon for gas out there. You're going to be paying $8 probably in a year.
Right.
Well, all that cost goes into the transportation fuels for the big trucks and the trains that move all those imports at Long Beach, San Diego, and Los Angeles into the interior of the country. So that's going to be another round of inflation that we're going to have to deal with. I mean, we already had Biden inflation. Now we're going to have Newsom inflation here in the country. I am not generally, I got to tell you, I'm not generally in favor of federal intervention in the state's affairs. But when you have a state like California that's so clearly run by completely incompetent people and ideological Marxists, as far as I can tell, you almost have a pretty clear case for federal intervention into how the state is governed. And I wonder if you guys have concerns about that happening, because I don't think any state really wants to be in that sort of a basket case situation where that kind of intervention happens to it. But I just wonder if you guys have concerns about that.
A lot of concern. David, you mentioned about fuel. Yeah, I mean, I pay in excess of $5 a gallon, and I think with the refinery going down, it's going to be up to 8 in a couple of years. Our electricity rates are the highest in the country, and we basically want to have everybody driving an EV, which puts more of a demand for electricity. And the fact that we're going to be losing revenue, gasoline tax revenue, to support the roads, well, its electric rates are going to probably be required to support the roads. So we have the highest cost of electricity now. That's got to go up, because you got to get the money somewhere to maintain those 400,000 miles of roads, and you're putting heavier vehicles on them.
Right. I've talked about that. I've written about that a lot. Nobody is thinking about the impacts to the roads from these incredibly heavy cars and trucks. I mean, you have electric 18-wheelers that adds like 8,000 additional pounds of weight for an 18-wheeler from the battery you've got to put into it, or multiple batteries you have to put into it to make it electric. So yeah, I mean, that's a problem not just in California, but all over the country too,
But as much as Newsom wants to focus on air quality, he doesn't ever talk about the EV batteries that burn.
Yeah.
The riots, they're burning the EVs, and we had the recent fires a few weeks ago, and that destroyed
that big one up around San Francisco, right? In that storage.
Yeah, absolutely. You had hundreds of megawatts up in flames at Moss Landing, which is the largest lithium battery storage facility in the world, and it's caught fire. I think that was the third fire at that facility, and they're doing surveys in the wetlands there, the sensitive habitats there, finding huge concentrations of heavy metal poisoning the ecosystem, the marine ecosystem, poisoning the crops. There's a lot of salads and greens and those types of vegetables grown in that area. And so imagine now the people that are clamoring for these facilities, eating wheatgrass shots and all their sprouts every day. They're just eating heavy metals, and we're all being exposed to this in the grocery store. And those are the kind of stories that you don't hear about because they're not doing the testing. It's nothing like the oil and gas industry and the regulations that we have in place to ensure safe production for the life of the project. And as Ron mentioned, there is no, well, what happens if the whole place burned down in the calculations for these facilities?
Well, we see these big storage facilities for these electric batteries. Do we have any real recycling of them happening? The EV industry loves to talk about, well, we'll just recycle those batteries. Is anybody really recycling those batteries? I have a hard time really finding any sort of sizable recycling effort for EV batteries, but you guys may know better than I do.
I know one of the Tesla executives broke off. I forget his name, but he's working on a facility. But I don't think these facilities have gotten to the age of where we'll see mass turnover of the infrastructure and failure of dead batteries into the recycling. So I think it's scary for me to think about, because you've got over 10 gigawatts installed of battery energy storage systems, lithium in California. I think you're approaching that in Texas now. So there's going to be a wave of trash hitting the market at some point.
Well, and it's also solar panels and wind turbines and blades and towers,
Right.
none of which is getting recycled at this point. We have enormous graveyards for wind energy blades in West Texas, all over the damn place now. None of it's being recycled in any real way that I can see.
And we're getting to that point in time where the EVs are a certain age out and retiring.
Yeah.
What do we do with the batteries? With old EVs or with burned EVs? The fire department has a tough time because these are chemical fires. They require a lot of water to cool down. We just had a friend of ours from Calgary visit us for a few days. She lives in a condo complex in Calgary. And if you own an EV, they will not allow you to park it underground.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes. Right. Yeah. And you have to pay higher insurance premium if you're going to park one in your garage as well. Insurance companies are really starting to catch on to that problem.
Yep.
Stu, you put up a chart a minute ago that showed the average. Let's see, where is that? Here it is.
He's got the utility prices up there.
Yeah, these are the utility prices, California versus average U.S. price. And, I know that there is at least one place, and I forget where it was in California, where the rate was over 40 cents. But that was an isolated situation, though. On average, what is it? A little below 30
almost
cents.
30 cents a kilowatt hour. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So not quite UK or Germany rates, but pretty doggone high.
One of the key things that I want to ask the group is, I've been doing a lot of research on who to invest on natural gas, because when I'm looking at the overall grid update and demand, we're at 92% increase in expected demand for electricity in the United States, thanks to data centers and everything else. Well, how are we going to get there? There's only one natural gas plant that is planned for California. How can they even meet demand? Look at natural gas as it relates to California. This is natural gas in California. Holy smokes. You're importing, and this chart, David, is foreign imports of energy from Nathan.
Well, natural gas, they do have major pipelines that come into the southern part of the state from New Mexico and Texas.
We import 90% of the gas we consume.
Yeah.
So 90% of the gas. Yes. And then it goes into depleted oil reservoirs or gas storage facilities. And then we're dependent on those facilities to meet the demand.
But hasn't the Newsom government also been trying to force all the gas plants into closure?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Gas is the next target, and we're still 43% natural gas fired for our electricity generation. So it's now we're really hitting that critical point where you have to decarbonize nighttime, and it's not working with lithium storage facilities because they're 2 to 4 hours in duration. And so when you look at the 10 gigawatts we do have installed, they come on at sunset and you see it cascade. We never get anywhere close to 10 gigawatts on the grid at any one time. You're about half that, maybe 4 or 5 gigawatts, and they kind of stagger it, and they kind of make it look like you get 4 or 5 hours of duration out of those batteries, but it's really not the case. And so it's going to be a lot higher from here on the electricity prices for Californians, sadly.
Mike, on storage, the way the grid, from what I understand, is that storage is also paid standby fees when they are not producing or having electric draw out. So those storage companies are a money cash cow for the folks that put them in, because they just suck in all the money, even though it's no electricity going out to the grid. What a waste to consumers.
Yeah, there's so much baloney in the levelized cost of energy, and all these calculations that investment bankers latching on to the green grift create so that it looks like these facilities are economic, but it does not factor in a host of variables. Why are they just able to grift off of the free power due to the excess photovoltaics every single day? Well, those only exist because of the mandates, and you still have to have this natural gas standby, and the cost of keeping a natural gas facility on standby rather than operating all day long as it should be. There's a cost to that. There's so many layers to this that are just, it's exposed simply in the graphic you put up, Stu, that shows we pay 30 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity. It's not cheaper. What's happening is not cheaper. I don't care how you slice it. I know we argue between fossil fuels and renewables and what's cheaper, what's reliable. That shows you right there, it's not cheaper.
Frank,
California's been successful of shutting down coal-fired power plants, but much of the imported electricity is from coal-fired power plants outside the borders of California.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, that never gets factored into the thinking at all, I don't think. Frank Stepik, Ronald, has a really good comment I think you guys might agree with. Commissioner Wright from the Texas Railroad Commission, a guy who's doing a fantastic job on our commission here, mentioned at the TAEP gala a couple of months ago that we need to focus on reducing uncertainty. The market and new tech are supporting this, right? In Texas, I think they are actually. California's approach to energy seems to be nothing but increased uncertainty and experimentation. That seems pretty accurate to me. I wonder what you guys think about it.
My biggest concern is I don't think California leaders understand the word energy, because they really either talk about electricity or the products that are driving society. But that's all lumped into energy because they think renewable energy, wind and solar energy, is going to replace fossil fuel energy.
Right.
Well, wind and solar does something totally different than fossil fuels. Wind and solar only generates electricity. Oil, for example, is never used to generate electricity. But without oil, you don't have all the products that drives all the infrastructures.
Right.
So you can't replace it. They do different things. And I'm really cautious when I write articles about using the word energy. I either talk about electricity or the products or the transportation fuels, because wind and solar cannot make transportation fuels. They can't make tires, can't make insulation, can't make medicines. And like I say, they only generate electricity. And then it's intermittent electricity.
Right.
And
they
can
don't
you imagine the
inertia.
surgeon needing to check the weather report before it goes into surgery?
Right.
Yeah.
As we found out in Spain and Portugal last month, wind and solar also do not create inertia on the grid. That has to come from base load. And if you don't have the proper level of grid inertia, you're going to have a massive blackout like they had in those countries. So, and again, these are things that people like Gavin Newsom and, just renewables boosters in general don't ever want to talk about. They don't want you to think about these things and the kinds of drawbacks and factors that we're discussing here and you guys write about all the time.
Well, with the big increase in electricity for AI and data centers, they need continuous, uninterruptible electricity. And that's exactly what wind and solar cannot provide.
Yeah.
Continuous, uninterruptible.
That's why they'll stop building them in California, and you'll see data centers in every other state.
Right.
Well, you're going to see data centers is on the border of California and Arizona and Nevada, where they can take all our free photovoltaic power that we shed to them all day long, and then they can use natural gas whenever they want because they don't have crazy mandates. And you'll see businesses again stop developing in California. That's what we're seeing happen. And I think, to Frank's question on uncertainty and experiment, I think the policies in Sacramento are very certain. They're saying, hey, we're doing this, and the experiment is what happens on the back end. And to your point, David, on inertia and what we're being saved by, which and to Ron's point about the policymakers maybe not understanding all of this, what we've been saved by the past 3 years is the climate. We've had heavy rains the past 3 years, which has filled up our reservoirs, which has brought back hydroelectric power generation, which now we have not had a warning from Governor Newsom to turn off all the appliances, unplug all your vehicles, like we had in the pandemic in 2021 when everybody was home. Like they're trying to design us to be stay at home, do not travel in your vehicles, just sit there and be plugged into your devices. We're going to have drought again. The Southwest is prone to drought. It will happen. We're a desert climate. And so the reservoirs will recede again. And this problem will present itself in a major way, because 3, 4, 5 years from now, when this happens, we're not going to have anything available to us. The reservoirs will be down again, and then you'll have more of this renewable power on the system, and it's gonna be a Spain, but instead of happening in Spain, it's gonna happen in California.
Well, and that's, that wouldn't be surprising, would it? I mean, California, it seems to me, has, well, I think it's kind of unarguable. California has made every energy related mistake that Germany has made over the past 20 years. Sometimes they've been ahead of Germany, sometimes they've been behind them. But Germany is a basket case that is deindustrializing its economy by, through the same kind of policies that Newsom has been invoking, and Jerry Brown before him. And this is not just a Newsom thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder in Texas, and so this creates a problem with other industries that are power hogs. In Texas, we're seeing this major influx now of new data centers for AI and other technologies that need them coming to Texas, where they believe they'll be able to source the energy, the power generation they need, electricity they need to meet their 5 nines uptime requirement. 99.99% of the time they have to be up and running. Are you seeing a similar influx of data center sites there in California? I just wonder if all this instability is kind of discouraging that.
There's a couple I'm aware. Well, there's a couple that I'm aware of, but the biggest growth in data centers is Arizona.
Arizona.
Arizona is exploding. So I think you'll always have some level of data center build out in California, just because we do have Silicon Valley. We are a technology hub, but I'm sure they're not liking the power bill. So I think what you'll see for those and what we've seen with Google partnering with Fervo in the Nevada and Utah deserts is to provide power for their data center, but not in California. And so whether they're importing electrons on the CAISO grid into California, or they're building projects off grid behind the meter for themselves to generate their own, have their own power plant at the facility, that's probably the future in California.
Well, David, in summary, California's policies have gotten us the highest cost of electricity, highest cost of transportation fuel, and it's affecting the middle class and the lower class tremendously, because the minimum wage is going up, and it's going to be really, really tough on people that can't afford it. If you can afford to live here in California, great place. We got a temperate climate, ideal climate. But if you can't afford it, it's going to be tough and tougher. And I don't see an end. It's going to get worse.
Is tough and tougher related to dumb and dumbest?
Well, guys, we will use that to wrap this thing up. We're 35 minutes, so we've gone a little over, but that's great. This has been a wonderful discussion. I appreciate you so much for taking the time to do this with me, and Stu, and hope to have you on again here sometime soon, maybe in a couple, 3 months, see where we are once all the rioting calms down and
For
and
sure.
the EV mandate has been rescinded by Trump, and we'll see where things stand maybe in August or September. How about that?
Fantastic.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you for shining a light on California's issues.
Yeah. So now everybody, we know what in the hell's going on in California, at least where energy is concerned. We don't know anything else, but at least where energy is concerned, that's what in
Amen.
the hell is happening. I am David Blackmon, and that concludes this episode of Energy Impacts Podcast. Thank you for joining us.